Once again, welcome to The View from Here, Behind Enemy Lines, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to announce that we have a guest today, Lura Forcum. Is that how you say it?
Yep.
Okay. Of the Independent Center Organization.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, first question I have is, what exactly, for our viewers, what exactly is the Independent Center?
The Independent Center works with a group of voters who are independent or independent-minded. These are just folks who are basically nonpartisan. They don't feel at home in either party. And so we think it's important for everybody to engage politically. And I think it's hard for people to feel engaged when they're not part of one of the two parties. But so what we're trying to do is offer a choice for people that is more aligned with their values. We don't put out policy positions. We at this point are really just trying to get together a movement of people who are kind of like-minded in that they are not feeling represented by the two-party system. And so we're a nonprofit C3 organization, which means that we don't endorse candidates and we can't comment on specific legislation. So our role is really an educational role. And a lot of what we spend our time doing is surveying, interviewing, polling people to try and understand what's important to independents. Because if we understand what's important to them, then we can link different policy and issue areas to their preferences and needs, right? So if you tell me I'm concerned about affordability, I can tell you how different policies will impact affordability, or positively or negatively.
Oh, so you'll comment on policies from one side and the other and present it to them so that they can decide, is that it?
Yeah, we try to avoid commenting on specific legislation, but if you want to talk generally about what are the types of what are the types of policies that will improve or not a different area, right? Like if you want to talk about how you could modernize the immigration system, we talk about that in general terms, right? Rather than saying, House bill whatever is a great bill. That's something we wouldn't say.
Right. Okay.
So basically, you're conduit for conversation.
Yes, we want more people engaged in political and policy conversation. I think that's a great way to put it. That's kind of my personal mission as well. Is I don't have a party. I want to see the political system as a whole working well, and it works well when the most people are engaged.
So you're trying to avoid the polarity of party mentality without interfering with the conversation.
Let's see. Yeah, that's a good, okay. Yes, I like that framing. We're not telling people what to think. We're telling them, if this is important, here's one way to think about it. And we're also, we feel like the two parties are sort of in this loop where they keep getting further and further apart from one another. And you end up with this group of Americans in the middle who don't want to participate politically because they feel like the political process and the parties don't represent them. So our mission is really to get these people back engaged because, we don't want the reasonable people in the middle to quit politics and leave it to people who are just, moving outward on the left-right spectrum.
Well, I think that both parties are guilty of moving far away from their core principles. I mean, I was a Republican until Ronald Reagan left office. After George W. Bush, Herbert Walker Bush was elected, I left the party officially. I've been an independent since then. However, to be able to vote in primaries, I have, and since most of the time I would support the national candidates, at least the Republican, I've registered as a Republican for primary purposes.
I see.
Locally, even when I was younger, in my teens and 20s, when I started voting, I would generally vote towards the Republican side while I was a Democrat. But locally, I knew the Democrat politicians. My father knew them all, so I would vote for the Democrats. So it was a mixed bag for me. I wasn't voting one party line or the other.
Mm-hmm.
In recent years, that's changed, especially the last few years. But because it saddens me that the two-party system, which was something Washington warned about, right,
Mm-hmm.
has become a uniparty. One takes,
Mm-hmm.
they're both lining their pockets. These members who were sitting there for decades. That's the only careers
Yeah.
many of them have known.
Thank you for I wanted to just go back to one point you said, which is that you would split ticket vote and swing vote. And we think that that's something that's really important to bring to the attention of people who are politically disengaged is you can be an independent without necessarily voting third party, but
Mm-hmm.
by swing voting and split ticket voting, because we think that's what brings accountability to the parties, right? Because if you have to win the votes of people who are not your base, you're going to have to do that by saying what you're going to do and then actually doing it. But if you can just rely on your base to get elected, then they don't care if you deliver or not. You have to really be egregious, right, for your base to leave you. But if you have to actually win over a group of independents in the center, and increasingly that's the case for a lot of districts across the country, that's how you make politicians accountable again.
I did
As,
vote for Ron Paul one year instead of George.
as far as I'm concerned, the ideology of the parties has been muddied, and
Mm-hmm.
the strength of a two-party system in our two-party system in a perfect world would have been you have the inventiveness of the liberalism side. In tow is also the you might say the sensibility of the practicalities of the conservative side. So you have this give and take. Okay, we've got this great idea, yeah, but can we afford it? Here, if we're going to do that, let's do it this way. Blah blah blah, and you would have a synergy. It's almost like a male-female relationship where you have the strength of the female, strength of the male together. You get a man and woman together
Mm-hmm.
as a team, you cannot defeat them. They're incredible. So that's how I would see it in a perfect world. Unfortunately, the parties have been more about cronyism and about establishing political agendas instead of ideological agendas. And that's where I disagree with them. But I am default a Republican because of survival purposes. But I felt it was necessary to fall into republicanism only because of the fact that the left, the Democratic Party, had gone to such a great extreme that my moderate nature was displaced, and I found myself as a light Republican. So, just to prove my point, this last election for mayor, I voted for a Democrat mayor. Why? Because he's a great mayor. The fact
Mm-hmm.
he's a Democrat means nothing to me. What's important to me is that is the best person for the job. So the interesting thing is when you talk about an independent organization, okay, which is an organization, um, it seems to me as though you're going to get a lot of side traffic from the left and the right, where you have people that are straddling that line in a quasi independent manner. And how do you manage those folks?
That's a good question. And I noticed that like people who are really deeply politically engaged, the way the two of you are, like that's the question they have is kind of like, how are we going to know who's uh who's in and who's out? And I don't think that that's a question that the Independent Center can answer for all political independents. I think independents are going to have to decide that for themselves. Like, what are the real principles and the ideology? Just like you said, like, what is our political philosophy? And I totally agree with you that the parties have gotten away from an underlying political philosophy. A lot of the times the way we summarize our kind of core view, and this does come from polling and survey work that we've done with independents, is these are voters who want to have choice, right? Like they want to have choice in their in voting for candidates, right? Like having a third party candidate potentially. They want to have choice in terms of economic freedom, to be able to make decisions, right? Start businesses, not have a lot of regulation and, just constraints around how they make decisions. And then also choice where like you live your life in a way that you believe is correct. And if it's not harming other people, that we tolerate people's basically the decisions they make in their lives. So it's really, that's kind of our one underlying principle. But I think that is going to be an important question as we start to see more candidates. And obviously, so like we couldn't endorse a candidate, but as we're sort of deciding within this movement as it grows, like who are we going to want to, put forward or talk about, right? Like that's really important. And I kind of go back to the idea of what you said for your mayoral vote, which is, I think at this point, we want to support people who are decent people and do the job well. And I think increasingly telling you your party membership doesn't necessarily tell you where people stand on a particular policy issue. Look at economic issues, right? And if you say like, I'm for economic protectionism, I can't tell you if you're a Republican or a Democrat as of the last few years. So like it's weird. It's like this club that's like, I really need to know if you're from the left or right to know if I agree with you. And I find that really odd because it's like, couldn't you just listen to the ideas?
Well, the thing is that when you have a conversation with a person and you start bouncing ideas back and forth, you find out where your boundaries are. Mm-hmm. And I immediately discover the people who are on the so-called left. Okay, I don't even know what that means. That they are absolutely in opposition to what I consider traditional lines of thinking. Okay, so in other words, progressivism is not inherently a positive experience for people. You could get progressively sicker every day. Mm-hmm. And so that term is like ketchup on a hamburger. It's spread all over the place. So and it's let's make a joke. It's impossible. But anyway, the thing is that I like the idea of your organization being a forum for ideas, and I like the idea that you have people that feel displaced by the polarization of party, that they can go someplace and make a more informed decision and feel as though they're part of at least something that is, but at the same time, my underlying concern with your organization is always, it's ultimately an organization. At some point, what's going to happen is you're going to get a coalition of people that are all moving in one direction. And the question is, have you not created that catalyst that causes them to basically become this super organism that's going to go off and do something? And because normally independent voters are looking for a candidate, and what do? They create an independent party, the party mm-hmm. of the shoe leather party, Mm-hmm. So now all of a sudden there's this third party. It's shoe leather party. So we're back to party. Why? Because we need to acquire money in order, and also enough clout, political clout, in order to be able to project this individual or individuals. So the thing is that I don't see any political organization as being ultimately neutral. At some point, there is going to be a projection from your organization, and it's going mm-hmm. to have an impact. And I don't necessarily see that as a negative thing, but to say that it's that it's not there just doesn't seem true to me. It seems that maybe it hasn't happened yet. So you could say, well, that's the way it is. But the point is that 130,000 people in the same bucket, that's a lot of people. And I can't help but think that your independent party, so to speak, at some point is going to have a direction that's going to make political clout. And I don't know where to go with that, but that's one of my concerns.
Well, you're going to have factions within any organization.
Sure.
Right.
It doesn't mean that one is going to overpower or control all the others. It may happen. It may not. If it does happen, then that is through nature. That would be that would happen because people thought of their positions and decided on this, and most people agreed with that, and then they're going in that direction. I don't see that as necessarily a bad thing either.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like kind of what you're talking about is as there's a shift in values, and this is just a matter of debate, right? Like as there's a shift in values, should it be coming from the bottom up, right? Where coalitions emerge, people change their views, they agree with each other, disagree, they split off into factions, or can it be controlled from the top of the organization down? And our approach has been to look at things from the bottom up. That you know, nobody has called us and asked, could you please be in charge of the rules of how political independents think? So we really feel like what we need to do is make sure we're understanding the values of the people who've identified themselves to us and said, hey, we're not happy with the parties either, can we get together?
See, the thing is that I see you have chosen an extremely difficult thing to do, which is to create an organization honor bound for neutrality to a great degree. And I personally don't think I could ever do that. Okay. So because I can't see it in myself, it's difficult for me to see it in somebody else. But I wish you the best of luck in maintaining this forum of neutrality, because I know what it is like to be a person who feels left out politically. And just like I'm a member of the Tea Party. And I went there because I was desperate for associations. And I don't necessarily care for being a member of the Tea Party itself, but when I go there, I'm in fellowship.
Yeah.
So I see that as a primary experience for your members, that they feel disenfranchised, possibly. They just don't know anything else other than this little group over here. Little group, 130,000 people. That's a big city. Anyway, so the thing is that and in truth, I could actually see myself falling into your group at some point, only because of the fact that I don't see MAGA as a contradiction to being an independent, so to speak. I'm aligned to more than one group, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I am owned by them.
Yeah.
So you know, you're doing some crazy stuff. I'm pretty impressed with it.
Well, thanks. I mean, we don't have a litmus test of like, you can't be one of us if if you vote Republican, or you can't be with one of us if you vote Democrat. We're like, if you feel like you're an independent, we're going to take your word for it. If you're independent minded, we're going to take your word for it. It's interesting that one of the ways that you sort of are hearing what I'm describing is as being neutral, because I think the way I would describe it is right now, because of partisan politics, a lot of the time on an issue, we're having a really crazy conversation, right? Like we're having conversations that are like, we should have no immigration, or we should have anybody who wants to come here can walk on in. right? And you can look at countless issues where the party-led policy conversation is just crazy, right? Like, you have Republicans saying there's nothing wrong with the climate, nothing is happening, nothing to see here. And on the other side, you have voices that are saying, like, we need to be using 100% renewable energy tomorrow. And so what we feel like we're trying to do is say, well, what kind of conversation could we have about the policy issues if we weren't bound by party lines? And I think sometimes even a stop clock is wrong twice a day. Sometimes the parties are the ones who are getting it right on a particular issue. And we're not gonna say, well, it can't be right because it's coming from a party. But what we are trying to say is, like, if you want to understand this issue and what good policy would look like on this issue, here's what neither party is telling you. Here's what they're not saying. And just trying to get the conversation back to normalcy, to some limited extent, if we can. Basically,
the correct answer, if you can call it that, is somewhere in the middle between the two extremes. And now is it closer to this party? Is it closer to that party? Is it closer to the middle? Whatever.
So basically, a political argument based upon your explanation right now. I have a perfect metaphor for you.
Okay.
In regards to the left and the right. Okay, imagine the left and right are both pieces of bread on two opposite sides of the sandwich, and the conversation in the middle is the bologna.
I think this is the other kind of sandwich where the bologna is on the outside. Is that
the wish sandwich?
That's true, because the two slices of bread are colluding with each other and keeping the bologna out of it.
They won't even admit that the other side is the bread. No, we're the only bread.
I agree with you about the ideas of your organization coming from the bottom up, because right now the two parties are controlled from the top. The Democrat Party especially is very, you follow in lockstep. The Republican Party to a certain extent also, but there's more variation in how to do something, rather than just, no, this is the only way to do it. But they're both controlled from the top down, where that was one reason that Trump appealed to me. One, he wasn't part of either party. He wasn't a professional politician. I think we had enough of professional politicians. I mean, a lot of people disagree with me because, he's not a politician. He's not that. But he was a refreshing change. And what made me wonder, what caused me wonder was that people, especially in New York, did not like the way he spoke. They would rather have somebody who lies to you with a smile and stabs you in the back than have somebody who'll tell you the blunt truth to your face. Okay. And what gets me about New York and New Jersey is most people here are as blunt as Trump is. And they hate him for that. They hate him for being what they are. I can't understand that.
I absolutely disliked Trump until 2016. I just didn't like him as a person. I think it was partially jealousy, but also he's so bombastic, he's so outgoing, etc. It just seemed very Barnum and Bailey, And what changed my mind was not Trump. It was his opponent, Clinton. Her behavior in Benghazi pretty much settled it for me. So I didn't vote for Trump. I voted against her. And the thing is that as time went on, since I did vote for him and I actually campaigned for him, I went door to door. So the thing is that I did that. And over time, I accepted his personality. He's kind of like, when you're a kid, right? You've got your friends, and then you've got the friend of the friend. And the friend of the friend kind of sucks. It's like, you don't like them, but because they're so-and-so's friend, you put up with them. And as the years go by, guess what? They show up at your house and you're watching a movie together, they become your friend. So that's what happened with Trump. I by simply being around him often enough, I learned to accept his over the top behavior, and that was actually bothering me. So I can understand why some people absolutely dislike him,
Mhm.
personality wise, because I did too. But I agree with his most of his policies, and I so the and also I think MAGA has changed the Republican Party, and it's going through some sort of transitional period, and I think it's going to be a more desirable party in the near future. Um, and I think if you look at who voted for Trump this past runaround, you'll see that a number of groups that really stood up for him that might not have in the past. So I think the Republican Party is in reform. I think the Democratic Party,
I
because they
hope
failed
so.
so miserably, has to reconsider what they're
Mhm.
doing and stop being such extremists.
They have to
And
return to blue dog roots, away
oh
from
my
the
God,
communism that's enveloped them.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the local pizza place that is so used to getting local business that when the pizza place 4 blocks down opens up, they wonder where all everybody went. What do you think, Laura?
Of like the direction the Republican and Democratic parties need to go.
Hmm.
Anything, because I was talking too
Oh.
much.
Yeah, whatever.
um, one of the things I was thinking is what you described as like you didn't vote for Trump, you voted against Hillary Clinton. I think that there's this temptation to look at people's voting behavior and make all of these conclusions when, like, in reality, we have very little information. We have, like, okay,
Yeah,
you voted, this is what your vote looks like. It was a yes for this candidate. And, we all spend all this time trying to read the tea leaves of like, what were voters really doing? Were they turned off by a too progressive message from Democrats? Were they voting against a woman? What exactly was happening, right? And so we're all just making our best guesses. And what I know about independents is, independents delivered this election to Donald Trump. Before that, they delivered it to Joe Biden. Before that, they delivered it to Donald Trump. And we know that a big concern for them was affordability, and inflation issues. And I tend to think that their voting was primarily driven by just economic concerns, right? Like they want a party that's going to address affordability. Um, I, you know, whether it's so I guess because of that, I would tend to think that the Democratic Party, if it wants to come back into power, is going to need to start addressing affordability issues. And I don't know if anybody in the party leadership is getting that memo. It's hard to tell what's going on there right now because they seem like they are in disarray.
They seem to think that their problem this past election was their messaging. It wasn't their
Mm-hmm.
messaging; it was their policies.
I think the reason why they lost is they didn't have enough jazz hands.
Well, I didn't know. I should try that. Maybe independents need jazz hands, and I just didn't
Well,
get that message. Um, I think telling voters the economy is fine when voters are clearly concerned about the economy was really de-energizing. That's my best guess. Is
Yeah,
when people tell you I don't have enough money and you say, no, look at this chart. You have plenty of money, right? Like that doesn't resonate in the way that the Trump campaign's message was able to resonate.
I
right.
mean, I know that some of the vote for Donald Trump was because of the leaders that the the Democrats were trying to give us were horrible. You know, less. I mean, Hillary Clinton is at least competent, if evil in my
Mm.
eyes. But the other the people they were trying to push on us this last election were just incompetent and yeah, I don't. They would make us even more of a laughing stock in the eyes of the world than we were the previous 4 years.
Nick Marcario, who was on our podcast, we interviewed him. He's just a regular guy that lives in Pennsylvania. and hates Trump. But he voted for Trump
Oh,
because
interesting.
John F. Kennedy. He wanted John F. Kennedy to do his thing.
Robert.
Sorry. Well, I got the Kennedy part right. But anyway, so the thing is that Robert F. Kennedy brought a lot of people in, as did some of the other folks that decided to stand alongside of him. So, yes, the independents had the independent vote is always important. I mean, everybody wants it, but the thing is that
can't win without it.
Yeah, RFK was a big deal when he decided to endorse Trump. That knocked me off my chair. I said, "Oh my God!" So now RFK wasn't RFK an independent?
Yes.
Okay, so
because the Democrats wouldn't have him anymore.
You mean this? You mean the group that didn't even have a proper determination of who was going to run? They just said, you know what? Let's not have this convention here. Let's
they're
just
all for democracy,
sign it.
but they said we're going to pick our candidate, not you people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I forgot. I was supposed to forget that. So, Laura, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point you're making, that like Republicans were the ones that kind of opened their arms to the third party candidate, and because of that were able to create a coalition. And I think American politics has, maybe people incorrectly thought that they could operate outside of coalitions, but I think we're coming back to this truth of you're going to have to find people that you can work with, even if you aren't in agreement 100%.
Compromise.
And right, exactly. And I think that in our everyday lives, at home and at work, we're used to compromising. That's how everyday life works. If you went to your job and said, no, I don't work with that team because there's one or two things they do that I don't like, you would be fired. And so the fact that in Washington, increasingly how it seems like the parties work, or at least how they talk, is that they're not going to work with the other side. I think most Americans just find that absurd. Of course you need to find areas of overlap.
The best example of that compromise type of relationship was Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. They were polar opposites, but they would sit down and actually literally sit down. I hate using literally because the kids use it all the time, but out of context. Anyway, they would sit down and over a glass of whiskey or a bourbon or whatever, and they would say, okay, I need this for my people. What do you need? And so forth. And where can we compromise? So you get some of what you want, I get some of what I want. Mm-hmm. That's how politics were done before, making the sausage in not such a sloppy manner.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think we have some really great examples of people that are on philosophical issues deeply divided from one another, and yet they can still appreciate each other's position, right? And it's a really interesting question of like, when and where does that happen? I think the dynamic in recent years in our politics has just been really destructive. This idea that like, if you at all work with the other party, you're betraying somebody, or you're betraying your side. You're a bad person. That it's just so divorced from our normal lives that I find that a really odd way of governing. I think we need to be looking for where we agree. And, I think on a surprising array of policy issues, Democratic and Republican voters aren't all that different from each other. There's a lot of common ground. I know you're talking about party leadership being very far apart, but in terms of how voters look at it, they're not nearly as divided as like all this rhetoric suggests.
You may have an organization that only has 130,000 members. However, I think you and your organization represent, if not a majority, close to a majority of Americans.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that the 130,000 people that are that have decided to commit themselves as a member are probably connected to a larger number of people that they influence, because these are people that have actually said, I'm going to take a stand here. I'm going to say that I'm a honest to goodness moderate, and I'm going to take the time and energy in order to go ahead and explore political issues. And I think those people are going to be most likely vocal, and they're going to be drawing people in. So 130,000 is a drop in the bucket when you consider how much their influence can spread.
True. And we would like to grow that number. Obviously, it's very small compared to what the Democratic and Republican Party registration is right now. But one of the things that's really interesting is if you look at the exit polling from the election in 2024, 34% of those individuals leaving the polls identified themselves as independents, which was tied with Republicans, and Democrats were 32%. And there's some other data, if you look at this like generationally, interestingly, it's the younger two generations, Gen Z and millennials, who are most likely to say that they're independents and they're not they don't identify as a member of either party. And so I wonder, I think my read from what I know of the people who've joined our organization and from the polling I see is there's something about these younger voters in particular that makes them say, I don't want to be a member of a party. Neither of those parties feel like home to me.
Well, actually, from what I've heard, some of the younger voters, the newest generation, a lot of them came out and voted for Trump.
Yeah, they did.
They're more conservative because they've been lied to enough. They have enough life experience to see that this isn't working, and they're even going to church now, which is kind of interesting. So, that's. I don't think that the young people are actually. Now, I'm a game designer, so I spend a lot of time with people under 25.
Oh, okay.
And they are, they're not me, that's for sure. They tend to be, well, I get along with them, but I'm more of a curiosity than anything else. But the thing is that I notice about is that when it comes to what I would consider traditional expressions of what male and female are, they're out the window. Okay.
Okay.
It's not a question of gender identity. It's like they just look whack as far as I'm concerned, and you have to get used to that. But I have to say I don't have problems with them as people, and they're friendly. They engage, and I can't say that for earlier generations, because a lot of people in my generation could be very standoffish.
Could you say that last sentence again? Could you say the last sentence because you broke up a little?
Breaking up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Most of the people in my generation are standoffish.
The one before that, sorry.
You were asking me to remember what it said before.
We have a problem here because we're two old guys and we're lucky to remember what we said 5 minutes ago.
Anyway, why don't you watch our video and then you can see what I said.
No, it didn't come through. I was trying to tell you that you were breaking up.
Oh, okay. Well, then it wasn't important.
You want to go through the whole spiel again?
All I know is that young people seem to be very engaging to me, and I'm only going with my personal experience. And people of latter generations seem to be less engaging. They're more suspicious of basically strangers engaging them, which I don't blame them. I'm on guard all the time, but at the same time, I do engage because that's my nature.
That's really interesting. Like if there's a generational difference there, they could be like more open, more trusting. it's hard to say, but that's a really interesting observation.
It's also the hobby itself. I believe it allows people social output that other hobbies don't necessarily do. It's the thing is the COVID thing kind of messed people up socially, and this generation got hit by that. So they're around the board table and they're talking, they're playing Magic the Gathering and various games and so forth like that, and they're really engaging with each other. They're not. Yes, they use their phones a lot, but they're getting this in your face social experience. I think that's important. I don't know what that has to do with the podcast, though.
You know what? It's funny because like I think you and I are engaged in like stereotypically opposite endeavors. So I just started hosting a potluck at my house every other month. So probably I should be playing games and you should have a potluck, but just generationally speaking, but that's not what's happening. But I think like one of the reasons I did it is because I think that after COVID, we lost this instinct or like habit we have of gathering with people in person. And I think it's hugely important. I think a lot of the polarization that's happening in the country right now is facilitated by the fact that when you don't get together with people face to face, it's just really easy to be like, oh, those guys are like, oh, those are Democrats or those are Republicans, and like they're going to be horrible. I don't want to talk to them. And what you find when you talk to people that you disagree with is they are complicated and they're, like they're not what you thought they were, right? Like they're more complicated than that. And so I think it's great that you're able to like talk to like, right, like the what do you call those games?
Younger generation.
Board games, card games.
Yeah, the board games. Like it's great that you're able to like talk to these people because it's kind of letting you get acquainted with people who differ from you in a really significant way. And I think everybody should be doing that.
Here's an interesting thing. A reason why I put this hat back on is I want to tell you that I've been wearing this hat, and some people complain about that. They say it's not washed enough. I've been wearing this hat since 2019. And I get an average of about 2 complete strangers coming up to me and saying nice hat or getting into a conversation. So if you consider the amount of days that have transpired, and I would say that I get almost in a conversation daily with somebody, and I live in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania area. I've got a chance to talk to a lot of people, and a lot of those people were independents, and they go, we voted for Trump, even though I'm not political, blah blah blah. I voted for him because the thing is that we did draw in a lot of independents, and because of what Roy said, that he is not a so-called politician, although he taught all the politicians how to play the game. So, I think that's one of the reasons why Trump won is because he didn't exclude anybody. He was the ultimate DEI man. He was like, hey, come on, everybody, come on in. I don't care who you are. I'll even sing some Village People stuff. So the thing is that I think that ultimately the role of the independent is not so much about establishing parties. It is about establishing a greater sense of what it means to be an American citizen.
I like that.
You can use it in your...
yeah, thank you. Yes.
No problem. My lawyers will get in touch with you tomorrow.
Okay, send me the paperwork.
Which brings up one question I had. Where do you or your center feel fall in regards to the Constitution?
Oh, we like the Constitution. We think we should keep it. I think it's the most important document we have.
It is. The most important document the world has.
Well, actually, I think that the Constitution is a definition of the body of the United States, and the Declaration of Independence is the spirit.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. It's a Declaration of Independence. So we're baked into the foundation of the country.
we had a gentleman that we interviewed. I can never remember these people's names. You know his name.
Which
who
one?
was writing a book on creating a universal declaration of rights
Is that Bob
for our
Moran?
world.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that John Paul Moran?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, he was Thomas Jefferson's great grandson. So the thing is that his book should be coming out very soon, and he believes that the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution can be unified into a world declaration of rights for all people in all the world without it necessarily being an imperialistic action.
Oh, interesting.
I have one more question for you. Sorry. Somebody calling for donations. What do you hope to accomplish? First off, how did you get into? How did you start this organization, and what do you hope to accomplish? And
Okay,
have
so
your goals changed since you began the organization?
okay. Well, I am very new to this organization. It's existed for about a year now, but I started as the president back in December. So I have been at this for 5 months now.
Congratulations.
Yes, it was a great
And good luck.
Christmas present. So I have kind of an unusual background. I've worked in policy communication for some time, where my job was to take research by scholars and help explain to the general public what it says on different topics, mostly related to policy. So it would be things like floodplain regulation, which, believe me, nobody wants to talk to you about floodplain regulation, but it's tremendously important. So it was such a struggle to talk to people about it that I eventually decided it would be interesting to study like how you persuade and communicate with people. So I got a PhD in consumer psychology, and I spent 7 years as a marketing professor at Clemson University. And that was interesting, but what I came to feel was that there's a lot that the field of psychology knows about how to reach people with ideas. And my personal mission, the thing that just like is really important to me, and I'm thankful to have the Independence Center so I can pursue this, but the thing I care about is getting people to talk about what good public policy looks like, because I think, it's a policy can make your lives better or it can make it worse, right? And so to me, like, we have this incredible ability, especially as Americans, right, to like trust and work with people who are different from us and who we don't know by governing ourselves. And so I don't have a political party. I want to see a really healthy democracy where as many people as possible are engaged. And so my research background lets me understand and research like what makes it possible for people to communicate with each other even when they disagree, to share ideas even when they disagree. And so kind of like the opportunity to work in that space of talking to more people about public policy is what made me decide to leave academic life. And then I was just really fortunate to meet the people who are creating the Independence Center.
How much percentage, and I know this is a very esoteric question, percentage of emotional communication versus cognitive communication?
Like rational. I don't know.
The sizzle versus the steak.
I don't know a percentage off the top of my head, but
Okay.
I tend to look at it like, most of our brains are designed for relating to other people. And if you are doing research in like brain scan research, which is not my area, like I never did any of this, but in the research literature, when people are scanning brains while they're doing different types of thinking, the mental processes we use to get along with other people are so efficient that they almost can't be measured. And it's because we evolved to get along with each other. well, actually, I should say we evolved to understand each other, right? And so in modern life, most of that is us cooperating with each other. And so I think we have this like tremendous ability. So, in terms of like what we do best is understand other people. And often that's like emotional type content that we're responding to, right? We're like, oh, that person's angry. That person is threatening. That person seems friendly. That person seems helpful. So much of that is emotional. And yet we talk about public policy like anybody's interested in knowing the percentage of, of like what a tariff percentage should be, or what, what's the right tax rate. So I think there's a big opportunity in reaching people on public policy to be able to talk about it in a way that is interesting to them, instead of saying like, well, of course, that if we regulate that, the price will go up.
The reason why I mentioned that is because I consider politicians that use primarily emotional communication, they tend to be disingenuous. They're about creating some sort of emotional response in the people, instead of just simply informing them of what's going on, which I think is a little bit more honest. But I don't see how you can actually separate the two. There has to be, for me, the aha moment is a feeling versus the intellectual process, which gets me there. So there you go.
And not all of these emotions that are especially related to human relationships are good, right? So like one that's figured really prominently in the past 16, 20 years or so is outrage. And I think everybody is just so tired of feeling outraged. And that's one of the things as well that I hope the Independent Center can do, is bring people into political conversation that's not characterized by a lot of outrage. Because it's unpleasant, it's exhausting. Nobody wants to be outraged anymore.
Well, outrage is sometimes seen as, from the person who's experienced the outrage, as a justification and therefore proof of their integrity.
How does
and
your
it spreads.
Go? I'm sorry.
Sorry. I mean, that's the thing about outrage, is like people share it and it moves through people really rapidly. So it's like this incredible communication tool, but at the same time, it's degrading the relationships we're having with each other.
True.
I'm sorry, Boy, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay. How does your organization, how do you interact with your members and with people outside your organization? What do you do what is your goal, basically, I guess?
We have a bi-weekly newsletter that we send out. So anybody who's interested is welcome to sign up on our website. It's free. It's www.independentcenter.org. And there's a sign up at the top of the page that you can get our bi-weekly newsletter. And that's every other week, not twice a week. And then we are hoping to start doing some small in-person get-togethers in different states, where we're gonna, we'd like to see who wants to show up and have a beer with us. Oh, we lost your funnel.
You lost Mike, but keep going.
So we'd like to start getting together in person, across different states, just so that people can meet other like-minded people. Because like I was saying about the potlucks, I think it's important to get people together in person and get to know people in person. I think that's hugely important.
Okay. And well, is there anything else you'd like to say? I mean, I don't know how much time you have and so forth, but how much? I mean, is there anything you'd like to say to the public, to the citizens? Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I lost your sound.
I don't know why it.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, it muted. I don't know why.
I hit the screen because there was something on it, and I inadvertently muted your voice. You're okay now. Sorry.
Thanks. I was just going to say that I really enjoyed the conversation with you and Mike, and I really appreciate you having me on the show, and that you guys are talking through all of this stuff to your audience. It's so important.
Okay, well, we appreciate you coming on the show. We You have added a touch of class to a couple of classes. Guys who just this started as conversations between Mike and I decided to tape them, and then I decided to videotape them and put them out there for people to watch. And
Well, I appreciate you including me in the conversation. I really enjoyed it. It was nice
it was
to
our pleasure, believe
hear
me.
from both of
I
you.
was very confused about where to go with this particular interview, and I do feel as though I'm on your side now, and I'm pro you organization, and I don't see any harm, only good coming from your endeavors.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Just yesterday and even this morning, he was like, "I don't know about this. I don't know where we're gonna."
Oh my God! Don't say that.
No, you want
I
him
won't
over.
take it
You want him
personally.
over. So it's a victory.
Yeah,
It's a victory.
I was actually very suspect, and I had the similar problem with another gentleman, Adam Schultz.
Schwartz. Adam Schwartz.
Schwartz,
Not Schwartz.
yes.
Okay.
I have to correct him all the time.
And by the time it was over, I gave him my 2 thumbs up like I gave you. So so the thing is, yes, it has been.
You're better looking than he is. Your class is no. I like Adam too. He was a good guy.
There
He
he
had a
goes.
good sense of humor.
There it goes. Anyway, yeah, it was actually a great privilege to have you on.
Yes.
I see that your work is meaningful, and I think that if you continue in this direction, I see nothing but expansion on your part. And it's nice to see that you've given people an opportunity to have another choice.
You may be the chance that the United States has of uniting Americans more
That's
than
true.
they've been united in a long, long time.
Well, thank you.
I'm
I hope
saying,
so.
I'm not just saying that to make you feel good. I really believe that where you're coming from is the only way to draw people from both sides and say you don't have to be that polarized. Come on,
But
find common ground.
I'm gonna join, and I'm gonna be your first Republican moderate.
I don't think we ask people their like what they are currently
Affiliation.
voting. So I don't know how many of there are, but
Probably
you may
130.
indeed be the first. There you go.
Well, I wish you and your organization a lot of luck in the future. I hope your presidency becomes a hallmark of the organization, and that you do great things. That the things that I say I'm looking forward to you doing, I hope they come true.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so
you're
much.
always welcome to come back.
I really
Yes.
appreciate that.
If
I will
you
take you up
dare,
on it.
yeah, you can do it.
Okay.
Thank
All
you
right.
for putting up with our insanity too. Well, I think we behaved this time, Mike.
For the most part, yeah.
We all did, all three of us. So
Well, okay.
thanks, guys.
All right. Well, we're going to say goodbye to our audience now. Unless you have anything else you want to say, I don't want to rush you off. I just know that we were given 3 to 4. You were available. I don't know if you have something else. So if you want to keep talking, you can keep talking.
Yeah, I have to run to the next thing, but thank
Okay.
you so much.
I have
And
something to say.
I am okay.
After you finish.
Oh, yeah, I just thank you. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Okay. I have wisdom to end the show with: all things in moderation.
There you go. Even moderation.
Okay. Just
Yeah,
once I
moderate.
once I stop the recording, please hold on a moment,
Sure.
a few moments to make sure that you get uploaded.
Sure.
Okay, because sometimes it takes another minute or two.
Yeah.
So okay. If you enjoyed the show, folks, please let us know in the comments. Please rate the show, share it with all your friends and your enemies. And we'll see you again next time on The View from Here, Behind Enemy Lines. It's called that by the way, because I'm in New Jersey, which is enemy territory for me. Okay. Good night, everyone.